First thing I should tell you is I'm an only child. I am half Italian, and my father had me pretty late in life, like when he was 50. So my father and I did not have a very good relationship growing up, probably partly because he was a very angry guy. He was really angry and he was really closed, and my friends were afraid of him, and he was like very moody, very emotional. And he would never tell me about his life. So I didn't know anything about my father's life. I didn't know his family, I didn't know his heritage, I didn't know anything. And every time I tried to ask my father, he would get angry and he wouldn't talk about it. So I kind of stopped asking him after a while because this was, it just made the relationship even worse. And then when I got to be about 28, 30 years old, I decided to venture out and ask him again because I really wanted to know about his life, about his family. I knew nothing about it. And he finally sat me down and he said, well, you're 30 years old. It's time that I'm going to tell you a couple of things, but then I don't want you to ever ask again because I don't ever want to talk about it again. He said, I was born in Brooklyn. I grew up in Brooklyn. My father was Giovanni. My mother was Janetta. I had a brother named Nicky. I had a brother named Luigi and a sister named Victoria. My father's name was Dominic. My mother made him change it to Donald when she married him. And so my father was not really very proud of his heritage, but I was getting interested in my Italian heritage. So he said, I did not live at home. I grew up in an orphanage because my parents couldn't take care of me. My father was born in 1908. And he said to me that my little sister, Victoria, died in the influenza epidemic. But I don't want to talk about it anymore, so don't ask me. So I felt like he had just told me for the first time something about his life. And I mulled about it, I thought about it. And it kind of worked on me. I decided, maybe there's some way that I can. Oh, the other thing is he told me that he and his brother had a falling out over a girl when he was 16 years old, and he had never seen him again. And now my father, when he told me the story, he was in his mid-70s, okay? So I thought about this, the fact that, there must be maybe some family left somewhere in New York, but who knows? New York is how many million people? So fast forward about a month, and my girlfriend and I were going to Broadway to see Arsenic and Old Lace with, who was it? Gene Stapleton, I remember. It was like in the early 1980s. And we're sitting in the theater, and we had gone to New York. We had gotten our tickets. We'd gone to the TKTS booth in Times Square, and we were getting ready to go into the theater. And I got this really strong sense that I needed to, and this sounds really crazy, but I needed to run across the street, go into the phone booth, and they had phone booths at the time, and ask the operator if there was a listing for a Luigi Paris. His last name was Paris. And so my girlfriend thought I was losing my mind. I ran across the street, I went into this phone booth, and I talked to the operator, and I said, do you have a listing for a Luigi Paris? And the operator said, well, what borough? I said, borough? I'm not from New York, I don't know. We're in Manhattan. Manhattan. The worst thing that could happen is, she just thinks I'm a crank and, there's no listing and that's the end of it. So she gives me the phone number for this Luigi Paris. And so I'm thinking about this. And I decided to call this number. And I don't know what made me do it, but I call this phone number and I say, this old man answers. I said, is your name Luigi Paris? Yes. I said, did you ever have a brother named Dominic? And there was quiet. He said, I did, but I haven't seen him since he was 16. I said, did you have were your parents Giovanni and Janetta? He said, yes. I said, and did you have a sister named Victoria and a brother named Nicholas? I mean, a brother named Dominic, sorry. Dominic and another brother, Nicholas. He said, yes. I said, well, I think that I might be, your brother's daughter. And he was totally quiet. And I said, I would like to come and meet you. I know this sounds really strange because who does that in New York, in a city of how many million people? So I was in the theater with my friend going to see Arsenic and Old Lace, and I couldn't concentrate on the show. I couldn't concentrate. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about it. We left the show, and we decided that we would, I decided that we would go and meet this guy. And he tells me that he is living in Manhattan in the Lower East Side. He gives me the address. We went and got Italian pastries. We took the subway. It wasn't even that far. It was like, just a short ride. And he said, I'll have my son outside waiting for you. We got off the subway. We went to meet this guy and it's really crazy when you think about it. But his brother, Nicholas, was there. I mean, his son, Nicholas, was there. He invited me up, and it turns out this man was my father's brother. And it was so amazing. I ended up talking to him for hours. He told me that his parents had been looking for my father. And so we made plans for him to come up to where I was living and meet my father for the first time. I called my father. My father was very, very angry when I told him that I had met his brother. He called me back 3 hours later and he said, I've been an old fool. I wish I had thought about this earlier in life, but I'd like to meet my brother. So the day after Christmas, this man brings his children, my first cousins, which I didn't even know at the time. He came up to my house in New Haven where I was living. He was dressed in a fedora and a three-piece suit. He looked at my father in the doorway, and they actually fell into each other's arms, toasted each other, basically caught up on their lives after, however many years. They hadn't seen each other since they were teenagers. And we spent this magical day together of reconciliation, of tears, of love. And then they made plans to see each other in the next few months. Well, it turned out that my father's brother died within another couple months, and my father died within 4 months, and they never saw each other again. But the idea was that I had an opportunity to bring my family together, my father and his brother, to reconcile after all this time, and they were both able to live their last months together before they died. And that was, without a doubt, the time of the most incredible reconciliation and the one good thing in our relationship between my father and I that ever happened. So thank you for listening.